For 1800 years, the church held a shared understanding of happiness. Preachers, theologians recognized happiness as a good thing God created, then they spoke accordingly. The Logos Bible software, how many of you have or use Logos? Okay, highly recommend that software. Well, you can go in. I have the complete works of the Church Fathers, the Reformers, Spurgeon. I get them free because I have endorsed Logos. That's probably the reason they say, hey, you can have anything you want, and then maybe if you want to mention us in the acknowledgments, which I'm glad to do. And genuinely, I love that software. I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't love it. But so, maybe it would have cost, well, certainly hundreds and hundreds of dollars for me to have all those different things. But hey, I got it. I take advantage of it. So what do when I'm doing a book on happiness? Well, I start seeing what the Church Fathers said about happiness. Now, of course, that's always going to be a translation. So the Church Fathers didn't write in English, of course. And so you'll have different translations. Sometimes they'll use the word happy in the translation. Sometimes they'll use joyful, whatever. But when you're going through the Puritans, they did speak English. And so you're searching the Puritans, and you're seeing, okay, the word happy. Did the Puritans ever use the word happy? And then you look and you go, oh, only fill in the blank. I don't know the number. 30,000 times, whatever. Okay, so I'm going, I was going to look up every one of those. Okay, well, I'm going to have to do a little skipping around here. Spurgeon, one guy. This is, not just the Puritans combined. This is Spurgeon as an individual used the word happy. Something like happy or happiness 28,000 times in his sermons and in his books. And you start, then you look up, you put happiness and joy, and then you can put happiness within 5 words, joy. And what it'll do is find every time happiness and joy are used within 5 words of each other. Well, this is great because now you can see when they're used in the same sentence, is it to contrast them? Or is it to use them as synonyms? Or what else is it used? Why would you use those in the same sentence? And how do you use them? Again and again and again, the Puritan Spurgeon, I saw no clear case where happiness and joy were ever set in contrast with each other. No contrast at all. They are simply different words saying the same thing. So, full of happiness and joy. Oh, happiness and joy. Wow, that's 2 different things. No, saying the same thing. So, Spurgeon, the first Christmas carol, a message that he brought when he was 23 years old. That's one of the amazing things about Spurgeon. Some of the messages that he preached at age 19 and 20 and into his early 20s, it just blows you away. His eloquence, his insight. Many weeks he preached 10 different sermons in different places and rarely repeated the same message. I found overlaps of some of his message. I have a book called We Shall See God, where it's Charles Spurgeon's highlights of Charles Spurgeon's messages on heaven. And so I would look up what he had to say about heaven and the new earth. And it just blew me away. And right when I thought, oh, he's going to repeat a message because he has a paragraph that's similar to something I've already read, then he goes off and it's completely new, it's different, it's stunning. But the text was, glory to God in the highest, on earth peace, goodwill toward men. And then here's what he says. Friends, does not this verse, this song of angels, stir your heart with happiness? Then if the angels ushered in the gospel's great head with singing, ought I not to preach with singing? And ought not my hearers to live with singing? Ought not their hearts to be glad and their spirits to rejoice? Well, thought I, this is still Spurgeon, there are some somber religionists who were born in a dark night in December that think a smile upon the face is wicked, and believe that for a Christian to be glad and rejoice is to be inconsistent. Ah, I wish these gentlemen had seen the angels when they sang about Christ, for angels sang about his birth, and certainly men ought to sing about it as long as they live. Sing about it when they die, and sing about it when they live in heaven forever. Be not ashamed to be glad. Still Spurgeon speaking to his church. You need not think it a wicked thing to be happy. Thank you. Penance and whipping and misery are no such very virtuous things after all. The damned are miserable. Let the saved be happy. Why should you hold fellowship with the lost by feelings of perpetual mourning? Why not rather anticipate the joys of heaven? And as I was saying before, front load those into your life today and begin to sing on earth that song which you will never need to end. The first emotion then that we ought to cherish in our hearts is the emotion of joy and gladness. I deal with this in my big book on happiness and some of my smaller books as well, including Alessandro, the book that, if you got that book that you picked up today. Yeah, that one, 60 Days of Happiness. So I talk about this in there too. What I do is I contrast what is said today about not just the meaning of happiness, but about the meaning of joy. Have you ever heard it said, happiness is an emotion. Joy is not an emotion, it's a state of being, or something to that effect. Joy is not an emotion. The Puritans thought joy was an emotion. Spurgeon clearly thought joy was an emotion. The first emotion, then, that we ought to cherish in our hearts is the emotion of joy and gladness. Is there any doubt whether he thought it was an emotion? Obviously not. Well, of course it's an emotion. Tell me what joy does to you if it does not create some or involve some emotional response. What is non-emotional joy? What is it? Just knowing that I'm saved? Knowing that I am seated in the heavenlies with Christ, but I have no feelings related to that. I just know it. And somehow that's joy. That is not what the Greek word charis, which is translated sometimes grace, and chara, which is translated joy. That's not what that word means. It was an emotion. And I demonstrate this in the book where, like in Philippians, I go through Paul and talk about, I rejoiced because Epaphroditus, we heard he was going to die, and he didn't, and we rejoiced because we were so, it's in other words, you are my joy and my crown. He would say, do you think he had any feelings about him? Well, not only did he have feelings, that's exactly what he's talking about. You're giving me joy. You're making me be emotionally moved. That's what it means.